Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Tzadik Gimel Amud Beis, 5 lines from the bottom at the new Mishnah. Our Mishnah discusses again the malach of Hoitzah, but this time not only the item that one transfers from one reshus to another reshus, but even the kli that comes together with that item. Says the Mishnah, Hamoitzi oichalin pochois mikeshir b'kli. If a person takes out an food item less than the shear, the normal shear is a kigrogeres, the size of a dried fig, and he takes out less than that together with the kli. Says the Mishnah, potter afal kli shakli tfeilalo. He'll be potter even for the kli, not only for the oichel, which is less than the shear, but even the kli, because the kli is tafel to the oichel. That has no significance since it only subordinate to carry the oichel. For example, a person has a pastry that's less the size of a kugogeres. He wants to carry it out with a basket. Then he's going to be potter not only for the caking out of the food item, but he's also going to be potter for the kli, the basket, which has no significance in terms of the hoitzah. Says the Mishnah Vaiter es hachai b'mita. If a person takes out a living person on a bed, he carries him on a bed to the Reshus HaRabim. Potter afal hamita she'amita tfeilo. Not only will be potter on the person, because the Gemara will tell us that hachai noise es atzmoi, a person carries, so to speak, himself, whereby a person is not going to be chayiv for carrying him, but he will also be potter for the mita, which is again subordinate tafel to the person. Es hameis b'mita chayiv. However, says this Tana, that if he takes out a dead person on the mita, then he will be chayiv for carrying out that dead person. Again, not for the kli, not for the mita, because that's again tafel to the mace, but for the mace that he's carrying out. V'chein kezayis min ha-mace, ukezayis min ha-nevela, uke'adasha min ha-sheret chayiv. Not only a full dead body, but even if it would be a kezayis from a dead body, because a kezayis from the dead body also is metame through physical contact, maga, also through carrying it, maso, as well as this mahil and oil hames, whereby somebody, a person, or a food item, or a kli that's underneath that oil will become tameh because of the mace that is underneath it. Also, when it comes to a nevela of an animal that was not shechted, a kezayis and nevela is going to metame b'maga uvemasa, as well as when it comes to a sheretz, the size of an adosha will be metame through maga. Therefore, all of these things have significance in their shiurim, their respective shiurim, whereby if a person were then take out those amounts, they will be chayiv a korban chatas from meleches hoitzah. Rabbi Shimon poiter. However, Rabbi Shimon says potter in all of these cases when a person were to take out a mace or a kezayis of a mace, since he's not taking out the mace for a specific hoitzah on its own, but rather to remove it from the house, either should not to be metamed in the house, or he doesn't want that there should be a displeasurable odor in the house, so therefore the mace is removed from the house, or the kezayis of mace is removed from the house. It's a malacha she'en itzricha legufa, whereby Rabbi Shimon argues on the Tanakama, who is Rabbi Yehuda, and says malacha she'en itzricha legufa is potter aval oser. Tanu Rabbanon, the Gemara brings the following braysa: hamoitzi oichlin kishiur. If a person brings out a food item of the size of a grogeres, im bekli chayiv ala oichlin upotter ala kli. If he brings out together with a kli, so like we said in the Mishnah, he's going to be chayiv on the oichel because it has a full shiur, but he'll be potter on the kli because it's only tafel to the oichel. V'im haya kli tzorich loy chayiv af ala kli. But if he needs the kli, then he'll be chayiv not only for the food item that he's taking out, but he'll also be chayiv for the kli itself. Says the Gemara, Shmamina, we can derive from here, according to this, oichel shnei zeisei chelev behelem echad chayiv shtayim. If a person were to eat 2 shiurim of chelev, 2 kezeisim of chelev, behelem echad, he'll not only be chayiv one chatos, according to this, he'll be chayiv two chatosim. So therefore, just like we saw in a case when we chayiv one for the hoitzah of oicha and one for the hoitzah of the kli, so too he'll be chayiv for two chatos by eating two kezesim. Omar Rav Sheish is hochem ayaskina no kigon shogog alachil oichlin v'hezid alach oichli. Says Rav Sheish that we're not talking about indeed that if a person were to then be chayiv two chatos. The case in the Mishnah, in this brisa rather, is that a person takes out the oichil, he does so b'shoigeg, he'll be chayiv a korban chatos for that. And in regards to the kli, where he does that deliberately, he'll be chayiv he won't be chayiv a korban chatos, he'll be chayiv misa, because he does it intentionally. And therefore you cannot learn out to kazei say chaylev that a person will be chayiv two korban chatos. Maski for Rav Ashi asked on this shot of Rav Sheishes, if we're talking about two different types of punishments, the shoigeg and the mezid, chatos and misa, asked Rav Ashi, that's not meduyak in the Mishnah. Af ala kol kitoni. The Mishnah says af ala kol. That means even on ala kli rather, even on the kli kitoni, a person will be chayiv also on the kli, meaning even the same punishment, the same infraction will be not only on the oicha but on the kli. So not mashma like Rav Sheshes is saying. Elom Rav Ashi kegon sheshogag bezeh ubezeh. Rav Ashi says indeed we're talking about he was shogeg both on the kli as well as on the oicha. And he knew first about the oicha that he was shogeg about. Then he became aware subsequently that he was indeed shogeg on the kli. And therefore, they're talking about two chatos. And it's a machloikis like we saw previously. Upeplukta de Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan says indeed, like Rav Ashi is telling us here, that when there is a yediyah between the two shogegim, he'll be chayiv two korban chatos. So Rav Ashi subscribes to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Whereas Rav Sheshet subscribes to the opinion of Reish Lakish that says the yediyah is not mechalik, and therefore he's going to be chayiv only once, and therefore when it comes to the chaylev as well, he'll only be chayiv for one chatos. The Gemara now quotes the Mishnah as hachai b'mito, pater af ala mito. A person carries a person who is alive on a bed from the Shus HaYachid Rabbim. He will not only be pater on carrying the living person, but he's also going to be pater on the bed because the bed is subordinate. It is a tefillah to the person. Says the Gemara, Leima Maslisin Rabbi Nosson he v'lo Rabbanon. Let us suggest that our Mishnah ascribes the opinion of Rabbi Nosson and not the Rabbanon. As it says in the following brisa, the Tanya, Hamoitzi behema chayav ha'oif l'b'shus harabim, bein chayin ubein shechutin chayav. When a person takes out a behema chayav ha'oif from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim, whether it is alive, whether it's shechted, he will be chayav according to the Tanakama, the Rabbanon. Rabbi Nosson oimer al shchutin chayav, v'al chayin potter. If it is shechted, then it will be chayav, but if it's alive, it will be potter. Shachai noises asmo, because if it's alive, Rabbi Nosson says the principle is that a chai is noises atzmoi. So therefore, let us suggest that our Mishnah that says you're potter on bringing out a living person by carrying him out will also be potter because of this principle. Chai noises atzmo. How does this work? What does it mean? A chai is noises atzmo. Because a person who's alive is able to then balance himself to the extent where it makes it easier to carry. That makes it so that the one who carries him is potter. What does that mean? So Tosfos is oimed on this. Take a look at the second Tosfos. Divrei Masechet Chai noises atzmo. Ask Tosfos tema l'ri. The ri is in wonderment. Why should he be potter for carrying a chai? Granted, it's not like a mace where it's a dead body which is heavier and more difficult to carry. But still, even if it's lighter, why does that permit a person to carry and say it's not chayiv for mlachas hoitzah? Lama potter. Why is he potter? Potter, of course, means potter al also, but midiraisa, why is it not going to be chayiv? Di mishum sha'achai mekel atzmoi v'haloi afilu b'masa kal yoser chayiv. If it's because the reason is that he's more light, but still, even if it's more light, the one who's carrying it will be chayiv for taking something that's light. It doesn't make a difference how much the weight is. And therefore, if it's lighter because he's assisting the person who's carrying it, it should still be chayiv. If you're going to say because two people are doing the malacha together, and that's why he is potter, this is a case where the one who's carrying it is yachol, and the one who's not carrying it is eino yachol. Because the one who is being carried cannot carry himself without the one who's carrying him. And the one who's carrying can carry him even if he's dead. So here we have a case of yachol, ve'eno yachol. So we know that, we learned before, that only the yachol will be chayiv. So why over here is he potter? Answers, Toises v'oimeri, diba mishkan gamrinon. In the Mishkan we learned out, shelo hayu noisin davar chai, sheha techoshim v'ha'elim hayu holchim beragleim. When it came to the animals, the rams and the techoshim, they walked on their own feet, so they were not carried while they were alive. V'hachilozoin miyad hayu poitzin oisoi terem yomus. They would squeeze out its blood for its tcheles right before it would die. The kama the is bei neshama tfei nechale, as the Gemara taught, the more has neshama, the more is the tcheles of its dam. Ki heche de lintzlol litzivei. Therefore, better to then save its coloring, its dye. So therefore, it never carried in the Mishkan a living animal, only a dead animal. So therefore, we don't have a precedent in the Mishkan. And since we have the concept of chai noisetz atzmo, where a person, because he's alive, he makes it easier to carry himself because he naturally balances himself more for the person who is carrying him. Therefore, together with the fact that it wasn't found in the Mishkan makes it so that we find a patur for carrying a living person. So the Gemara now says, Omar Rove, afilu teimo rabbanon. Going back to the Gemara says, you don't have to say that this is specifically Rabbi Nassan, because you can even learn that the Rabbanon ascribe to this patur in our Mishnah. Because an kan loy pligi Rabbanon ale de Rabbi Nassan. When did the Rabbanon argue on Rabbi Nassan in this brayso that we quoted just before? Ela bebehem chayav oif. The mishtar b'tei nafshaya. Because they stiffen themselves and make it more difficult as they try to wiggle themselves out of being carried. So they make it more difficult for the one who is carrying it. However, but if it's a living person, so even the Rabbanan would agree with Rabbi Nassan. There they're not arguing, they're only arguing about a behema chayav ve'oif. Omar le Rav Ada baravo le Rove v'hodisnan. Behold, it says in the following Mishnah, Ben Beseira matir besus. Rabbi Ben Beseira, he permits a person to sell a horse to a nachri. In other words, if a person were to sell a certain animal, let's say like a donkey, to a nachri, so the Chacham were concerned that that would then sometimes lead to a Jew giving a nachri a donkey either as a she'ela, as to lend it to him, or as a schiros in order to then rent to him the donkey, and therefore the nachri might use the donkey for melacha on Shabbos, whereby it will be ascribed to then the owner, who's the Jew, that you're supposed to then have shvus in your behema as well, and therefore be chayiv, he'll be over in Isser Deraisa. So the Chacham said you cannot sell those type of animals that will do labor for you, that they cannot be sold to a nachri. However, a horse, says Ben Beseira, is different, since a horse doesn't do malacha. What does a horse do? A horse carries a person, and a person who's being carried on a horse is alive. So therefore he's not doing malacha on behalf of the Jew in case the Jew were to then rent or lend his horse to a nachri. V'tanyo, and it says in the brayso, Ben Beseira matir besus mivnei shehu oise by malacha, that Ben Beseira is matir to sell a sus to a nachri. He says because a sus doesn't do malacha. Shein chayavin alav chatos, because since all it does is carry a person, and a person is chai, and a chai is noises atzmoi, therefore there's no malacha being done. So therefore, Ben Beseira over here is the one who says, indeed, that you can go ahead and sell a sus to a nachri. And yet it's the same Ben Beseira saying that Rabbi Nassan holds the same way as Ben Beseira. It's mashma that only Rabbi Nassan holds that chai noise es atzmoi, but not anybody else. The Amris the Lord Pligi Rabban Ale Rabbi Nosson. If you're going to say that Rabban only argue Rabbi Nosson in regards to a behema chayav ha'oif, but when it comes to a person, because he's noise as atzmoi, they would agree with Rabbi Nosson. If that's the case, and they do agree with him, then why is it that Rabbi Nosson is the only one who says like Ben Beseira? My area Ben Beseira, Rabbi Nosson. Why mention that Ben Beseira, Rabbi Nosson hold like the same way? Behold, you're saying that the Rabban also would agree with with Rabbi Nosson, that indeed a chay is noise es atzmo, and therefore it would be ascribing to their opinion as well. Answers the Gemara Ki Omar Rabbi Yochanan, when Rabbi Yochanan says this statement that Rabbi Nosson and Rabbi Seir are saying one thing, he was saying it besus hamyuchad la'oifois, in regards to a sus that is miyuchad to oifois, that it carries oifois, a certain type of oifois that were used for then hunting other types of birds. So they would perch a type of bird, maybe an owl or a vulture on the animal, and the animal would go, and then when they were ready, they would then send out the vulture, the owl to then kill or capture a bird. Umiiko, do we say sus hamiyucha la'oifos? Ask the Gemara incredulously, is it so that there's such a thing as a sus that's miyucha to carry these birds? Answers the Gemara, in ika debe vaidon. There is such a thing that they use them as being bird catchers, and therefore they go to then prey on the birds by using this type of vulture that is being carried by a horse. And therefore that was what Rabbi Yochanan meant when he said that Ben Beseira and Rabbi Nosson are saying the same thing. That means that they say that an oif is also considered to be a chai noise es atzmoi, whereby you can sell the horse, according to Ben Beseira, to a nachri, because even if he's going to use it for this, they're going to use it even for an oif, this oif will also be noise es atzmoi, and it won't be considered to be a malacha. Omar Rabbi Yochanan says another statement. Umoy de Rabbi Nosson bekafus. Rabbi Nosson, however, does agree with the Rabbanan if the chaya behema and oif is kafuf, if it is tied down. If it's tied, I mean not down to the animal, but it's tied together. So therefore, it makes it so that it's not chay noise es atzmo, and therefore a person who's moitzi a chaya behema va'oif that is kafus, then it's going to be chayiv chatos. Omar le Rav Ade bar Asna la'Abayi v'ohani parsoi the command the kafiti domu. Behold, the Persians were known to wear these wide types of garments when they were riding a horse, and therefore they were immobile. Not only that, but they were considered to be mefunak, that they wouldn't step foot on the ground and walk, and therefore they were considered to be immobile. Whereby, how can you say that indeed that Ben Beseir was able to sell a horse to all nachri? However, behold, we see over here that if indeed it was sold to a Persian, it would be considered to be kafus, and therefore it wouldn't be begeder chai noises atzmo. It would be doing a malacha if the horse would be carrying a Persian. How could they say that Ben Beseir and Rabbi Nosson said the same thing? Answers the Gemara, Hasam, there, it's not like you think that it's kafus in the sense that it's completely kafus. Ramus rucha hi denaki luhu. When the Persian would ride the horse, he was arrogant, and therefore he wore these very wide type of garments, as if to say that he's immobile, he's being carried only by the horse, and he wouldn't step foot on the ground. Dahu pardashcha, because there was an officer, a Persian officer, the Rosach Malka Ilave, where the king was very upset at him. And he fled from the king 3 different parsoi. That means a big distance he was able to flee. So you see that he was mobile. Only what he acted arrogant when it came to being sitting on the horse, and therefore he wasn't really kafus. Therefore he was somebody who was mobile, and whereby he was begeder chai noise es atzmoi.